Hello, and welcome back to Alonesy. Last episode, we finished up our first job of a most potent brew, and we ended with Nax, the Candlekeep envoy that Celestine met at the Font of Knowledge, or the Temple of Ogma in Waterdeep, telling us that a scholar named Matreus has gone missing inside the library. And so we are off to a new adventure this evening with only Caelum and Celestine. What's Sin up to? We'll revisit that later on. For now, we return inside the Font of Knowledge as Celestine and Caelum has just heard the situation from Nax, with Celestine not expecting this to be an actual investigation, or at least not this serious, you know? Okay, so Celestine says, well, Nax, you didn't say anything about someone going missing. I'm glad I brought my friend Caelum here with me. So, who is this Matreus? And Nax says, he's a scholar, as I've said. A sage, rather. An expert in curses and applied arcana. He's brilliant, methodical, a little reckless about things that don't directly relate to curses. He was here doing research, and he was looking into a particular book. That may have been an error in judgment on my part to give him this book. And Caelum asks, the book? Why would a book be dangerous? And Nax taps a finger against the towering stack of books beside him, then carefully pulls a folded parchment covered in copied notes and arcane sketches. The matter concerns a very particular book. It's called The Joy of Extradimensional Spaces. The original volume belonged to a mage named Fistandia. Before she disappeared, she donated her library to Candlekeep. Most of the books are merely valuable. This one is different. It's a treatise on permanent extradimensional spaces, mansions, pocket planes, magical architecture meant to exist outside conventional reality. In the margins, Fistandia recorded, in arcane shorthand, how she created one such space, and more importantly, how to open the door to it. Matreus found that door 3 days ago, and he hasn't come back out, so if he could help us, that would be great. And obviously, he says, Candlekeep does not forget those who help it. Help me bring Matreus home and you'll be remembered well. Say a recommendation from me opens doors, literally, to the Great Library. And the archives are not accessible to just anyone. And I suspect the place that you will discover will contain a number of fascinating things as well. Oh, okay, Celestine says. Well, if it's been 3 days, we should get on with it. Who knows what could have happened to Matreus? And Caelum agrees, says, yes, indeed. Nax, if you will show us to where he was last seen, or his last known whereabouts. And Nax starts walking. He gathers his notes and motions for the party to follow him upstairs. He says, the book itself is being kept in one of the private reading rooms. After Matreus vanished, I thought it wise to just leave it alone there. And he leads them through the quiet upper halls to a secluded study room, a study chamber, where the book now rests on a desk. The room is small, just a reading desk, a window, stacks of what they assume to be Matreus' personal effects. He left in a hurry, it looks like. A mug of tea is gone, completely cold. But yes, it has been 3 days, of course. And the Joy of Extradimensional Spaces lies open on the desk, and Fistandia's tiny, precise arcane shorthand fills the margins of both pages. The main text itself describes in lavish detail the architecture of an extradimensional mansion, its layout, its features, the quality of its construction. And there's something almost hypnotic about how specific it gets. The width of the hallways, the warmth of the oil lamps, the color of the curtains. And on the right-hand page, the illustration of a pair of tall, iron-bound oak doors in extraordinary detail. And in Fistandia's handwriting, a single word circled in faded ink. And I would like our 2 characters present. I guess 3, Nax is here, but only Caelum and Celestine will roll insight. And I just got a new set of dice. I have now 2 sets of dice, which is fun. I got this new one from the Shop of Critical Role, and it's the Imogen one. I don't know anything about their campaigns. 1, 2, 3. I'm keeping up with 4 though, because it started, but there's just too many episodes of their 1, 2, 3. I might just watch the animated show once it's done. Anyway, it's so pretty. I chose the Imogen one because it has a red string inside. I would love the other ones, but I'm looking at the reviews, especially the Orim one. Sorry, this is getting off topic, but I'd just like to say my dice window shopping episode. And it looks like the review said the flowers, because it has like white little flowers inside the dice, they were like brown and a little wilted, which is a shame because on the photos and on paper, like it's a pretty design. But I think it's like maybe the resin is too hot and it wilts the flowers. Anyway, so I got the one with a red string tied inside and it's really pretty. I wish I could show you, but they will roll inside and we can roll 2 d20s now. How fun. My Imogen one is going to be for Celestine and my previous one is Caelum's. Okay, so it's either Insight or Arcana, so I guess I'll choose which one's higher for them. Caelum has +4 to Insight. Celestine has +4 to Arcana and +5 to Insight. I guess she'll do Arcana because Caelum can do Insight. Alright. Okay, that is an 11 plus 4, so a 15 for Arcana from Celestine, and a 13 plus 4 as well for Caelum's Insight. What does that give them? Okay, so with Caelum's 17 Insight, he sees that Nax is trying very hard to sound composed. Not that he's hiding information. It seems like he's just over-explaining because he's nervous and wants this to go well, and he feels responsible. Caelum also notices him watching the book more than normal. Just not dramatically, like quick glances, like he doesn't entirely trust it. And when Caelum looks at the illustration, something about it bothers him. The doors don't look like an artist's interpretation of doors. They're too real, too exact. And the perspective just keeps pulling the eyes inward in a way that flat drawings shouldn't. And Celestine reads the encircled word. She says softly, "Scepter?" Like, they're confused, of course, like why would this be encircled? And with her 15 Arcana, she feels that there's magic in the room that's old, but it's not dangerous, not unstable. Whatever Fistania built here was done carefully, and there are layers to it, like wards, enchantments tied together so tightly that they've lasted long after she disappeared. But the most special thing is, of course, the book itself. Usually, magical objects feel inert until activated, but this one doesn't. The moment any one of them starts talking about it and what the contents are, the mansion, the place, feels like the spell is already active and waiting for someone to engage with it. She also gets a sense at the moment she said scepter that it set a process in motion. And she looks at the illustration of the doors in the book and she gets a feeling that the space on the other side is closer than it should be. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, the three of them realize that they've been reading the description on the page. The doors and the hallway beyond them. The ceiling arching to 15 feet. The long corridor stretching out on either side has become more vivid, somehow, more than the room around them. And the desk is losing its weight. They are still reading the book. The room around them is still the reading room, the study chamber, until it isn't. And the oak doors from the illustration are suddenly in front of them. They are standing in what looks like the foyer of what could be assumed Vistandia's mansion. The room is simply gone. The room they were in before is simply gone. There is no portal behind them. There is no door back. There's just windows with indigo-like miasma pressing against them. Warm light of the oil lamps and the eerie vibe and a little bit unsettling silence of a house that has been waiting for quite some time. They also notice a lack of a sage, but they're still at the entrance of the home. Nax was caught by the spell because he was in the room when this happened, and his eyes are wide and he's breathing in short, shallow gasps as he frantically pats his robes. He says, "Oh gosh, this is significantly more immersive than the text suggested. Oh, I'm not supposed to be here." Celestine is very cautious. She looks at the indigo miasma pressing against the tall windows. She says, "There was no portal. We just sort of faded in here. And, well, Matreus isn't here either." Caelum's hand drops to the hilt of his sword, and he scans the area. He says, "Let's look around and try to find Matreus. Priority is locating him, and then we'll find a way to get back with everyone intact. Okay?" So they appeared in the foyer, in the entrance of what looks like a mansion, but they couldn't be sure how big it is just yet. The corridors stretch both to the left and to the right of the entrance, so let's see what direction they would like to go in. Let us roll some dice. Actually, before that, Celestine turns to look at Nax, who is currently low-key panicking as he clutches a stack of ink-stained correspondence to his chest. Celestine says, Nax, we're a long way from the reading room now. If we're going to find Matreus and get out of here, we need to know what we're working with. Do you have any magic or skills, anything at all, that can help navigate this place? I am a scholar, not a vanguard, Celestine, Nax says. My battlefield usually involves navigating the library's filing systems or managing the rather astonishing volume of correspondence between Candlekeep and the Font of Knowledge. But while I'm not a warrior, I am a scribe of the Avowed. My mind is my primary asset. If, say, there is a hidden ward in the structure, I can find it? Probably. I can also identify the properties of any magical object we find, given a little bit of time, as well as comprehend even the most archaic shorthand. But I suppose if things become aggressive, I do have my heritage to work with. I can provide some sort of fire support, literally, though I'd prefer not to singe the woodwork. And Celestine says, okay, great. Oh, you can stay behind me and Caelum, but meticulous oversight is definitely required if we're going to map the structure without a casualty. All right then, everyone, left or right? By the way, I actually made a fast character sheet for Nax. He is a level 1 wizard. So because the Joy of Extradimensional Spaces is actually for first level players, and our 2 main cast here are level 2. I added a level 1 sort of, what do you call that? Someone that they have to protect or keep alive, just to keep things interesting, rather than changing the combat encounters entirely. Okay, so I'm gonna roll a d6, basing it again with using the triple O character emulator. 4 to 6, they'll head left. 2 to 3, just the room right in front of them, and what's the last one? 1 is right. So that's like a Caelum, Nax, and Celestine preference. That's 2. Okay, so Nax suggests that they should prioritize where a researcher like Matreus would naturally gravitate. On page 18, Nax says, Fistandia described a sanctum of the pen. If Matreus is as dedicated to Arcana as I fear, he wouldn't waste time anywhere else, and he'd head straight for the primary source, the study. If you remember, there was a drawing of the ironbound doors, and it looks like it's this one. He points to the door that is ajar directly ahead of them from where they are in the foyer. All right, Caelum nods. Then I'll take the lead. Be careful, be prepared for anything. As they enter, they see that the entire far wall of this room is a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf. Even more books are resting on several large scarlet armchairs and small wooden tables, and there are several paintings on the walls. A fluffy black cat is curled up on one of the chairs. The cat sits up as they enter the room and meows. Celestine gasps, and she immediately pivots away from the rows of books towards the small cat. She says, "Oh, hello there, little kitty." She coos. Her voice is soft, you know how you would talk to cats or dogs or pets. And she moves towards the chair with an outstretched hand. She is surprised to find, a pet in a place that feels like it's been abandoned for a little while. She says, "Oh, look at you. Have you been waiting here all this time?" And Celestine will try to pet the cat, and you'll make an animal handling check. But before that, I would like Caelum to help her so we get advantage on this by saying, "Celestine, be careful. While it appears non-hostile, it is still a presence in a sealed demiplane. So, well, I guess if you could befriend it, that would be great too." And we can roll 2 d20s now. Yay! Oh, great. We got advantage because one was a natural 1, but this other one is a 12 plus Celestine's plus 2. And that is enough for the cat to let Celestine pet it. The cat purrs and hops down the chair and rubs against Celestine's foot or leg, and it seems to want to follow them. Yay, we got a temporary cat companion. Celestine laughs, and she says, "Oh, I think he likes me. You've been very brave waiting here, haven't you?" "Yes, you have." And she just coos over it. Okay, now we've got that settled. Time to look at all these books. Oh, there's so many. Nax says, "Right, if Fistandia recorded her exit command anywhere, it would be in her personal records. Or so we can assume." My memory of her treatise suggests she had a penchant for hiding information in the most obvious locations. And Caelum says, then we search. We're looking for a sequence, a pattern, maybe. Look for anything that seems like it forms a pattern. And since this is the study and there are a lot of things to go through, they do stay here for a while, and I would have a couple of investigation checks actually. And since they're all going through everything that they can see here, carefully of course, we will do it with advantage. Right, first would be looking through the books in this room and what happened, maybe if they can glean any facts from Fistania and whatnot. All right. Oh, nat 20! The other one was a 13. Anyway, okay. So that's like a general. It's a nat 20. I don't have to look at the modifier. So they see that almost all the books in this study were written by Fistania, and a lot of it are her memoirs. So this is a treasure trove of information. They learn that Fistania was a mage and a priest of Mistra, and in exchange for decades of pious service and achievements in the art of magic, Mr. granted her this mansion as a permanent extra-dimensional residence. She feared a guest might become trapped within it, so she hid the command word for the exit on books scattered throughout the mansion. So that's what they glean from the nat 20. You know what? In addition, Celestine reads aloud from the memoirs that she's one of the books that she's going through. She says, Fistania wrote, I have made this house for a long rest between the world and the page. If you are reading this and you are not me, hello. I hope you are comfortable. I hope the cats are well. I hope cumin and coriander are feeding you properly and not being too strange about it. If you find yourself unable to leave, I'm sorry. The word is hidden, but it is findable. I believe in you. Dash F. And Caelum says, okay, so we have to find a word. What, so this is like a game, I suppose? And then Nax reacts to what Celestine just read. He goes, cumin and coriander? Who's that? 2 other cats? And Celestine just says, oh, maybe we'll find out later if we explore more of Fistania's mansion, I suppose. But for now, do you guys see any books that sort of stand out? We have been here for a while now. And we will have Nax and Caelum roll investigation, and whoever gets the higher one will spot it. Unless, of course, they both get a nat 1, and we'll have to, we'll see when we get there. So this is Caelum, this is Nax. God, that got stuck in my DIY dice tower. Okay, you know what? Nax got a nat 1, and Caelum got an 11. Plus investigation is 12. Okay. Can you imagine if both are nat 1? Okay, anyway. So, while they were talking, Caelum moves towards one of the scarlet armchairs. He's been scanning the room. They've been here for a while. So, now they kind of have a direction on what to look for. And he's sort of looking for anything that didn't fit the clutter. He pushes aside a few loose scrolls, and at a table by one of the armchairs, he sees a heavy leather-bound volume that has been resting sort of half on the table and on the armrest of the chair as well. And he says, found something. It's got the same mage on the cover as the one that Matreus was reading. And also, look at the spine. And he holds it up so the lamplight catches the gold leaf, and embossed clearly in the center is a thick capital I. Nax scurries over, and I want him to give me a history check, actually. History is... Oh, he has 5 plus 5. 15 plus 5 is 30, 20. His golden eyes go wide. He says, that's it. The bust of Mordekainen is a perfect match. If she hid the exit word across 7 of these, then this is our first real step toward the door. Okay, well, seems like she turned her library into a map. And Caelum gives the room one more look, then hooks his thumb kind of sort of like, pointing, gesturing towards the door. 1 letter down. We're not going to find Matreus or the rest of the set by standing around here. Let's see what else is on this floor. And the black cat gives a short, expectant meow, but is sort of pawing at this bookshelf sort of at the corner of this room, and Celestine says, okay, let me just look at what this little guy is sort of pointing towards, and we will make our last investigation check in this room for Celestine. She has +3, and the cat will help her. I just forgot to say, okay, but great, because that one was a 3. This one is a 13, so that's much better. 13 plus 3 is 16. And she sees that there is... How apt. That was my Pomodoro cat. Anyway, there is a book that is slightly weirdly placed, and she tries pulling on the book. But as she does, there's a sound, like a clicking noise, and the bookcase slides forward, almost hitting her, so she steps back, and it reveals a passage behind it. Caelum, who has after some time relaxed a bit because there doesn't seem to be any danger, at least in the room they're in, went back to high alert because of this secret passage opening. And he says, "Good eye and good catch." And Nax peers into the gloom of the newly revealed hallway. If Matreus found this, it would explain why he didn't just walk back into the foyer. He's probably gone in deeper. Should we? And Caelum replies cautiously. He doesn't move towards the secret passage. He takes a step back, actually, towards the center of the study. He says, "We've found one letter, but we know there are others scattered throughout this mansion. If we go in there now, we might leave half of this floor unsecured. We should sweep this level first and ensure it's clear of threats and other possible, say, data points before we go to other floors." And honestly, this is me speaking. That's how I play video games. Clear one area first. Okay, Nax looks between the secret passage and the book in his hands, the one with the letter I, and he's a little bit excited, but still nervous. And Celestine says, "Right, we'll get back to this later. Shall we? I think we can start at one end of the hallway and move on to the other end now that we know that there might not be threats." Okay, I hope I just didn't jinx that. And onwards they go. They leave the secret passage as a for later thing, and they step back into the foyer. Caelum takes the lead, his hand still sort of ready to pull out his sword if need be, and his gaze sweeps the area of the west hallway. Behind them, the fluffy black cat follows them. It trots along, its eyes fixed on the hem of Celestine's robes as it follows her new friend, or its new friend. As the indigo light from the patio windows begin to stretch their shadows, the eerie silence of the mansion feels heavier, and it presses in like a physical weight. Celestine senses the tension tightening in Caelum's posture as he is reminded of this weird indigo-like thing outside, and the way Nax is clutching their newfound tome as if it were his only anchor to reality. She begins to hum a low, resonant melody, and her voice, carrying this resonance, weaves through the air like a ward against the stillness. She says, "Vistania said she believed in us. We've already found the first letter, the first piece of the puzzle of this story. We just have to find the rest." And as she speaks, a flicker of faint light, like a ray of sunbeam, catches the dust motes and settles over Caelum and Nax as she gives them bardic inspiration. I finally remembered to give it to them before any sort of combat. Okay, I'll mark that down. And the two of them feel a sudden surge of focus and clarity, a stirring of their spirits that puts them a little bit at ease in this demi-plane. Caelum offers Celestine a short nod of acknowledgement, and Nax breathes a long sigh of relief as his hands sort of reduce in its shaking. They reach the doors at the end of the west corridor, the room at the west end of this corridor, and they push the doors open and they step into what looks like the actual library. The room is a cathedral of literature. Floor-to-ceiling shelves are packed with volumes on all topics. The air is thick with a dry, comforting scent of old parchment, and somewhere deep among the stacks, however, there is a faint, dry rustle, the sound of paper shifting against paper. Caelum stands at the front, always alert, as his gaze sweeps the high, shadowed arches of the shelving. Behind him, the black cat stops at the threshold and doesn't enter. I will roll a triple O emulator for him. That is a 5, so that is the obvious. He does a perimeter sweep, or basically just stands guard. He maintains his lead, moves into the room with his hand ready on his blade. He ignores the books. He thinks Nax and Celestine, there's two of them, they can probably look for what they need, and focuses instead on the high shelves and the spaces between the stacks to ensure no threat or traps are waiting, as he notices that the cat doesn't enter the library. So he just readies an action in case something happens. And I think I missed some descriptions in the library, so I'll just reread as written from the book itself. It says, "Tall shelves filled with books line the walls of this room. 2 more shelves run through the middle of the room with a 10-foot wide aisle between them. Several stacks of books are piled high throughout the room. There are small reading desks with cozy scarlet chairs in the corners." Sounds nice. And I would like for Celestine to make a perception check, or I guess, yeah, just perception. That is an 18 plus 2, a dirty 20. She approaches the nearby desk as she sees a jeweled letter opener resting on it. She is fascinated by it as a piece of Festandia's daily life, and she reaches out to see if the object itself holds a memory of the woman who used it. But as she touches it, nothing happens, so it's just a regular letter opener. As she does this, Nax, who we've established, although scared, is also excited because this is, Festandia's library. His eyes starts between the titles in the shelves as he hurries towards a freestanding bookshelf near the center of the room. He says, Celestine, look, these are Festandia's personal account of the Outer Planes. Wow, this collection is, and he reaches towards a heap of leather-bound memoirs that look as though they were never properly shelved. As Nax's fingers brush the books, the silence is shattered by a dry, aggressive rattle of shifting paper. The pile of books heaves upward, and the entire 10-foot section of the freestanding bookshelf groans, pivoting forward on hidden hinges. Thousands of pounds of cedar and literature begin to plummet directly toward Nax. Caelum shouts move, but it's too late. Or is it? I will have Nax make a dexterity saving throw, or otherwise be knocked prone and restrained by the falling shelf. Poor level 1 wizard who has... What's your HP, dude? My dude. 8 hit points. Thankfully, it doesn't say anything about damage, but he will be knocked prone. Alright, Nax. Your dexterity is... Hey, you have a +2. That's not bad. You need a 15. DC 15, so 13 on the die. Ooh, that's a 5 plus 2, 7. He fails. As Nax looks up, his eyes widen with sudden terror, and he tries to scramble backwards, but his feet tangle in his robes, and his reflexes fail him as the shadow of the plummeting shelf sweeps over him with a deafening crash that shakes the hardwood floor. This section of the bookshelf slams down, and Nax is pinned beneath the weight, knocked flat, and held fast by the wreckage. He wasn't quick enough, and he's now prone and restrained. Hundreds of books continue to peel themselves off the surrounding shelves, their covers flapping like leathery wings and their pages sharpening into razors. They converge into a swirling swarm of animated books, diving toward the trapped Dragonborn, and the silver and sapphire letter opener in Celestine's hand. Caelum, seeing this, and since he has a readied action, lunges towards the swarm. You will roll for initiative. Actually, no. I'll have Caelum go first because he was ready, and then the books, because that's in their character, stat block, that they will go first. And then Celestine and Nax. That just makes sense since, well, he's restrained. I realized I could have used the Bardic for Nax's save. Actually, no, it doesn't. It was a d6, so it still can't reach 15, right? Yeah, you got a 5. Yep. Okay, never mind. So, Caelum... Where's his sheet? He would actually love to firebolt the books because obviously paper would burn, but he doesn't want... This whole place is filled with books. He doesn't want to burn this whole library. So he's just going to... Actually, before that, I just said like hundreds of books for effect earlier, but it is just one swarm of animated books. And currently their target is the closest, which is Nax, who disturbed their pile. So Caelum lunges towards Nax, who thankfully is still within 30 feet of him. He hasn't really gone far into the aisle. And Caelum, not really sure if it's going to be effective, just whacks his sword at this swarm of books. Okay, that is an 8 plus 4, a 12 to hit. Their AC is exactly 12. So he does a 1d8 plus 2 slashing damage. Oh, first time I'm gonna roll my new d8. And it got stuck. That is a 3 plus 2, 5 points of slashing damage to the swarm of animated books. Okay. And normally he probably wouldn't waste a spell slot, but seeing as Nax is actually in danger and he's a level 1 wizard stat-wise, Caelum is just going to follow up with a Divine Smite with that attack, with this free Divine Smite actually, so we won't use a spell slot. We're just going to use up his free one from one of the feats that he can use once per long rest. Then afterwards, he will need a spell slot to use succeeding Divine Smites. So that adds 2d8 damage. We get to roll 2 of our dice again. Please don't get stuck in the tower. Yep, that is 2 and an 8. 10. So the whole turn of Caelum, he did a total of 15 damage to the books. Nice. And I don't know if this works for non-humanoid opponents, but his longsword does have sap, which should give them disadvantage. It says a creature has disadvantage in its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. There are a lot of these minor details that I've missed in the previous episodes, especially for Cinna as a fighter. I will acknowledge those on the Cinna episode, but especially with her second attack. She has that feat which lets her add her modifier, and I'm so annoyed because anyway, that's for the Cinna episode. Okay, moving on. So Caelum goes towards Nax, seeing as he's in the immediate vicinity of this swarm of animated books, and he just drives his longsword into this swarm, cutting through the pages, the bindings, and as he hits them, he channels his conviction into a divine smite and unleashes a burst of radiance. And the books at the center of this strike are kind of disintegrating, but without flame, and it just glows, and then glowing soot scatters across the floor for those that are damaged. But they are still up. They have less than 10 hit points though, so should be fine. But it is their turn. Did I say that? Sorry, this is another day of recording. Let's say it's the animated swarm of animated books turn. It makes sense. They caught Nax by surprise. Nax, please don't die. So now that the swarm of animated books is kind of in a state of disarray and they're sliced through, the pages are torn, they're kind of ragged. It circles briefly, but it dives back down to the trapped Nax, and their pages are still snapping like jaws. They are thinned out, but they still have some fight left in them, and they will try to do their book club attack, which is, well, I guess they'll just attack it. It's a melee attack. So roll to hit, and at a disadvantage because of, oh my gosh, I remembered, because of the sap from Caelum's longsword attack. Ooh, 11 and an 18. So we'll take the 11 because it is at a disadvantage, but I think that will still hit next. Let me check. Yes, his AC is a 12, and the books add +3 to hit. So 11 plus 3 is 14. That totally hits Nax. And it hits him for 6 bludgeoning damage, or 3 if the swarm is half its hit points or fewer. Oh, nice. Okay, so it hits Nax for 3 bludgeoning damage. And he has 8 HP. So -3. He only has 5 HP right now. So the swarm of animated books slap against Nax's scales and his face and his spectacles. Nax lets out a sharp yelp and tries to shield his face with his arms as he struggles against the weight of the bookshelf still. It is now Celestine's turn. She is around 10 feet away from this mess because she is at the desk where she found the letter opener. I am so tempted to use Thunder Wave, but I know it's just gonna kill Nax, and he's caught up in everything, so we will exercise discipline and not use that. Instead, well, I don't think I want to heal Nax right now because it's gonna be a waste of heal. He only needs 3 hit points, and I can't cure wounds. It's 2d8, it's kind of a waste. I will just, Celestine will just, True Strike, the usual. The usual thing on the menu. She will first rush to the commotion where everything is happening. 10 feet, okay. Then casts True Strike on herself, and then tries to slice through what's left of the swarm of animated books with her dagger. That is a +3. Oh no, with a True Strike, it's a +6 to attack. That's a natural 1. I mean, yeah, a dagger against a floating swarm of books probably won't do as much damage as a longsword that has more leverage, or even a firebolt, but she tried, okay? And good thing we didn't waste a spell slot. I think as she runs towards the action, towards the books, towards Nax, towards Caelum, there's just a lot of paper floating around and everywhere else on the ground, and she just slips on these loose papers on the floor, and causes her to not exactly be effective for her turn this round. But you know what? We can heal Nax as she can sort of style her slipping to reach Nax and heal him for. So this is this is also another one that was confusing to me because healing hands for Aasimars there are two versions of it. So I think the most recent one, they changed it to d4s equal to what level you are. But the one that I based my original sheet on was the older one. So that was like amount of hit points equal to your level. So that's why when I tried to heal Cinna in the earlier episodes, I just healed her for literally 2 points of HP. But I think if we're using the latest rules, it's 2d4, so like your level d4. And I think it is an all or nothing. So we won't use that for now. Actually, fuck it. No, we won't use it. Never mind. Okay, so it is Nax's turn. Upon seeing Celestine slip on the pages, Caelum sort of glances at her because he can't really afford to be distracted, seeing as this low-level wizard is with them and is a liability right now. So he just sort of looks at Celestine and says, "Careful with your footing." And then Nax, still restrained underneath the heavy shelf, I think it's just one, and this swarm of animated books circling just above him, occupying the same, square. Sorry to be too technical, occupying the same square as him. He will try to push off this shelf, but he's not very strong. We do have the Bardic from Celestine. He also has a spell Magic Missile, but I don't know how we can use that when he's restrained. Okay, so I looked up the restrained condition, and apparently it also grants advantage to your attackers. So I should have just rolled straight earlier, but oh well. It's all in the past now. So now, I think because Magic Missile has verbal and somatic components and Nax is restrained, I don't think he can use it because he can't exactly move his hands that much. So he will just try to make the strength check of trying to free himself from the fallen shelf. So it's a DC 13 athletics. He has his athletics. He has a -1 to strength, so I'm guessing that's that. I don't really have an in-depth sheet for him, but his strength is -1, so that will be... Ooh! That's a 10. -1 is a 9. And then we can add Celestine's Bardic, which is a D6, right? She has a D6 Bardic. Please, just give us 3 or more. That is 2. So, 11. Oh my gosh, 1 short? What can we do? What else can we do? I have nothing else. We're level 2 characters. Okay. Anyway, well, that's that. So Nax tries to grip the underside of the shelf. His claws are scraping against the wood as he tries to push it off himself. And he remembers the melody that Celestine was humming earlier while they were in the hallway, and he feels a surge of adrenaline that almost masks the ache in his ribs where he fell, and he strains against the weight of this shelf, but his muscles are not very accustomed to this type of effort. He is more used to holding a quill than lifting furniture. And with a dull thud, the shelf settles back into its original position, pinning him firmly to the floor still. He says, "Oh well, don't mind me. I'll just wait here on the floor while you deal with your adventure things." And now it's Caelum's turn, and he says, "Save your breath for the next try, Nax. We're not gonna leave you here." Okay, so Caelum, so far, the only character from our party who was able to hit successfully. Oh my gosh, wait, he has guidance. He could have helped Nax. Oh well. I'm sorry, I'm gonna fix my dashboard of my character sheets when I'm in combat so I can easily see what they have. Because right now I'm when it's a character's turn, I have Caelum as a digital on my second monitor. I have Nax and Celestine as printed on paper. So I have to streamline this somehow. I'll work on it. Sorry. Anyway, so now Caelum will just hit once more with his longsword because this gives us the better success rate. Believe it or not. Okay, dice, don't fail me now. Ooh, yes, that is a 16 plus 4. That is a dirty 20 for 1d8 plus 2 slashing damage. Let's finish the books. Caelum, that is an 8 plus 2, 10 points of slashing damage. That is more than the remaining hit points of the swarm of animated books. As his steel shears through the remaining leather bindings and paper, the books are all shredded, or mostly shredded now. What was once a whirlwind of books is now just a rain of shredded parchment and broken glue fluttering harmlessly to the floor around Nax. Alright, Celestine, Caelum says, help me with this shelf before Nax becomes part of the floor. Okay, so Caelum does try to push the shelf off of Nax with Celestine's help. The book tells you to, if someone is saving the person restrained under the shelves, to make a strength check, but to me it just doesn't make sense because you're out of combat already, so I'll just let them do it. Actually, you know what? Sure, for the sake of it, we will roll. They need to hit a DC 15 athletics, and Caelum has +2 to his athletics, and Celestine will give him advantage because she is helping him. But like I said, so what if they fail? They're not just gonna leave Nax there, so it's kind of weird to make it a roll. So I'll just say if ever he fails this check, he still helps Nax out of the situation, but he probably gets a few splinters in his hand and will take, like, I don't know, 2 damage. 2 splinter damage. Alright. And that won't be a problem because it's an 11 plus 2, 13. And we will add Celestine's Bardic. 13 plus 3, 16, which passes the DC 15. Okay, now we're out of Bardic. Celestine will have to give them those again. She has 2 more to spare. So Caelum stands over the wreckage, his ginger hair slightly disheveled, and he's moving into position at the edge of the shelf to help get it off of Nax. Celestine tucks the letter opener into her belt and rushes to help Caelum, but she's focused on Nax if he's still breathing or something, seeing as he looks like he's just there, not really moving too much, but you know, he is alive. He's just sort of peering out from under the wood, kind of embarrassed more than actually hurt, but he has been hit. He's the only one that has been hit, poor him. Okay, Celestine says, on 3, Caelum, and Nax, be ready to move, just in case we can't hold it for long. Alright, 1, 2, 3. Then they lift it, and with a combined effort, they lift the heavy 10-foot section of this shelving. And as it rises, Nax doesn't wait. He scrambles forward to free himself, his claws clicking against the floor as he slides out from under the shadow of the shelf. And he slowly stands up, shaking the dust from his robes and adjusting his clothing, his spectacles. He says, oh, by the Ogma, I've spent my life studying the weight of knowledge, but I didn't expect it to be quite so literal. Thank you, both of you. My ribs are intact, though I believe my dignity is a little bit hurt. And Caelum says, well, now that that's done, we can focus. We are still looking for books, the missing pieces of the puzzle, so we can finally get out of here. Once we find Matreus, of course. Does anyone need any sort of healing? And Nax, still slightly embarrassed, mutters, the books did attack me and sort of swarmed me, so to speak. Nothing too serious, but I have a bunch of paper cuts around my arms, which is weird because he is a Dragonborn and he has thicker skin with scales, supposedly, but these are magical books. And Caelum helps him and does the lay on hands spell, which he has 10 points in the healing pool, so he can just bring back Nax's HP to full to 8. So he uses 3 from his healing pool. And Caelum turns to look at Celestine, and Celestine just nods at him, saying, I'm fine. And even if I weren't, I can take care of myself, Caelum. And Caelum just says, I know that. Just, just, you're not alone in this, okay? And I know you'll do the same for me as well. Alright. Books. They were all quite rattled. Although they were cautious, this is the first hostile encounter that they have had so far upon setting foot in this extra-dimensional space. But it is just the second room that they've been in. It's just that the cat was really friendly in the first room and nothing was very unwelcoming until now. So they are a little bit rattled. And they now know to just be on their guard. So now that a combat encounter has happened in the library, it's just a beautiful disaster and a mess. And they're going to have a harder time looking for the book that they need if it is in one of the bookshelves. So hopefully it isn't. Hopefully they can just spot it from one of the undisturbed areas in this library. So they will do a perception check. Who has the highest perception? Oh, it just says Oh, passive perception can work. Okay, so passive perception, Caelum has 14, Celestine has 12. So they both notice that there is one book among the scattered volumes that seems different. It is sitting on a shelf at eye level, the spine facing outwards, but it catches the light in a strange way. On the spine is a gilded capital letter R. Since Caelum has the higher passive perception, I think he sees it first, but Celestine notices it just a few seconds after. Caelum moves to grab it. The book is heavier than it looks, and it is bound in dark leather, and again with a single gilded letter embossed on the spine, the letter R. And the cover shows the same bust of the wizard. Did we establish that it was Mordekainen? I think Nox mentioned it. So it was the same one on the first book that they encountered outside of this space in the Font of Knowledge. He opens it, but the interior is blank. It's just empty pages. So it's not really a book for reading. Its sole purpose is to be a puzzle. That is the conclusion that Caelum arrives at. And in the duration of their search, since it took a good 10 minutes before they did finish searching this place, after the combat that is, Nax also found out some things, some additional discoveries. They seem to surmise that Vistandia's tastes were quite eclectic but focused. There are treatises on planar theory, detailed star charts, natural histories of magical creatures, religious texts on Mistra and the Weave. One corner is filled with a small collection of poetry, worn volumes, clearly reread a lot of times. So I think especially for Celestine, she gets a feeling that this mansion doesn't really have a mind of its own and is not out to get them. It's just the owner, Vistandia, hasn't been around for a while, and her absence is being felt by her home, which is a magical place. It looked like, so far from what they have seen, looked like a place made with love. And if it does have a mind of its own, maybe it just misses her. So they got 2 books now. I think they decide that it's just easier to try to be thorough and go through all the rooms on this floor first, and they move to the next room. The library is quiet now, and the books that fell are scattered across the floor like the aftermath of a storm. The 3 of them exit the library. Caelum takes the lead again as they move to the next room. This one's just right next to it. It's in between the study and the library, basically. As Caelum opens the door, it swings open into a room that smells of wood polish and, weirdly, old sweat. Faint, but unmistakable. Indigo light streams through a window on the far wall, tinting everything with that now familiar, otherworldly glow. A battered wooden training mannequin stands in one corner, its surface scarred with cuts and scorch marks. A weapon rack holds staves and daggers, all gleaming and well-maintained. The floor itself is a patchwork of stains and scorch marks, years of magical practice compressed into wood grain. And, in the far corner, a broom hovers in mid-air, sweeping methodically back and forth across the floor. It doesn't acknowledge their presence, it just sweeps. If Celestine and Nax were more attuned to the previous rooms that they've been in, I think Caelum now is more attuned to this one, as it shows a side of Vistandia that the characters haven't seen yet. Aside from being a scholar, she was also a fighter. There are the training diagrams here, the weapons, the battered mannequin. She honed herself into something dangerous. Nax seems curious about the broom, but Caelum stops him from approaching it any closer than he has and says, "Hold, let's just leave it to its duties. It's just cleaning." And Caelum himself drifts towards a weapons rack that's holding the various staves and daggers, his gaze lingering on the detailed attack diagrams pinned to the walls, the precise sketches of the parry positions and strikes. And Nax, still watching the broom sweeping, says, "Oh, a permanent animation for domestic maintenance. This is quite efficient." Celestine also watches the broom for a moment, and there's a quiet domestic rhythm to the sound of the bristles against the wood that contrasts sharply with the whirlwind they just escaped. Celestine says, "Seems the house is still keeping things ready for her in case she comes back." And she says loudly so Caelum can also hear her clearly, saying, "It seems that there are no books here. We should move our search elsewhere. Unless, Nax, do you need weapons? We can take some here if you want." And Nax looks at the rack, then down at his ink-stained hands, or claws, and a look of profound scholarly distaste crosses his face. Nax says, "While I appreciate the sentiment, Celestine, I'm afraid my skill set is better suited for spellcasting. I'll just stay behind Caelum." And Caelum gives the weapons an appreciative look as well, noting the craftsmanship, but he has his own weapon. He says he's right. If he hasn't trained with him, a staff is just a stick to trip over. Let's sweep the rest of the swing. And so they exit this room. The next room over is the first one that they've been in, the study. So they move past that. They remember that there was a secret door there, but they want to get everything from this floor first. So after that room, it was a set of stairs going upstairs. So again, prioritizing this level first. So right next to the stairs is another room, and they enter that one. Caelum once again taking the lead. The door swings open into warmth and light and the overwhelming smell of food. Fresh bread, simmering soup, herbs hanging from the ceiling in neat bundles. It's a kitchen, and it is large, gleaming, meticulously organized. A massive iron stove dominates one wall, radiating heat that feels almost miraculous after the eerie chill of the rest of the mansion. Tables are piled with ingredients. Copper pots hang from racks. Everything is spotless. And then 2 tiny figures land on the nearest table with a flutter of leathery wings. They are no bigger than ravens, with bat-like wings and small, earnest faces. They bow deeply, formally, and speak in perfect unison, their voices high and squeaky. "Honored guests, how may we serve you? Are you hungry? We have soup. We always have soup. And bread. Coriander has been working on the bread. I think it's excellent. Coriander thinks it could be better. This is an ongoing discussion." These 2 homunculi are so excited to have visitors. They are the first friendly friendly entourage that the party has encountered that can talk. So I'm sure some of our party members will have some questions for them. The one on the left bows again. "I am Cumin, created by the Lady Festandia herself, an honor beyond measure." And the one on the right flutters forward. "And I am Coriander, created by Master Freod, also an honor. We have been maintaining the kitchen and dining room for some time. A long time. It is very good to have guests again." And Nax stumbles back. He exclaims, more like, "They're winged constructs, homunculi." And he peers at them with his wide golden eyes. Very, very curious as usual. He says, "I must apologize. I had quite convinced myself that you were cats, though I am relieved to find someone in this house who seems very welcoming and likes soup." Celestine, her eyes are shimmering as she moves towards the table. She says, "It's wonderful to meet you both. I'm Celestine, and these are my friends, Caelum and Nax." She gestures towards them. "Festandia wrote about you in her memoirs. She hoped you were feeding her guests properly. It seems she was right to believe in you." And Cumin and Coriander beam at the praise, their small earnest faces wrinkling with joy, and they immediately begin a frantic fluttering dance of productivity, one diving toward a stack of wooden bowls, while the other hoists a heavy ladle with surprising strength. And in the corner, the fluffy black cat who was following them until the fight broke out in the library, and at which point it scurried away. So now it reappears, and it trots over to a ceramic bowl painted with stylized fish to wait for its own share of the meal. Caelum says, "Well, we've had a long walk, and if you're offering, we'll gladly accept." And seeing as those 2 insist on serving food, Cumin says, "You must eat, please. We have fresh bread and vegetable soup." And within minutes, the homunculi have set out bowls of steaming soup, thick slices of warm bread, and small cups of clean water. The soup is genuinely good, rich, hearty, perfectly seasoned. The bread is soft and fresh. Everything tastes real, which is strange, given that they are in an extra-dimensional space that has been sealed for years. The homunculi hover nearby, watching anxiously for their reactions, and Celestine talks to them while they partake in this feast. It is quite a feast, actually, and they are just all too glad to accommodate. It's the other way around, like, right? They're accommodating the need of the homunculi to be of service. Celestine asks, while they're eating, she asks Cumin and Coriander, "So where are your masters?" And Cumin says, "The Lady Vistania and Master Freya went away some time ago. We do not know where." And Coriander says, "But they will return. They always return. We must keep the mansion ready." And Celestine follows up, saying, "And how long have they been gone?" Cumin hesitates, wings fluttering nervously. I am not certain. Time is difficult to track here. The light does not change. The seasons do not pass, but a long time. Longer than usual." And Nax, after swallowing some soup, also has some questions of his. He asks first, "What do you know about the mansion?" And Coriander says, "Oh, many things. The Lady Vistania created this space using a permanent, magnificent mansion spell. It is a great work of magic. She was very proud of it. She used to come here to study when she visited Candlekeep." And Cumin says, "We maintain the kitchen and dining room. The cats roam freely. The fairy dragons in the arboretum are mischievous but harmless. Mostly harmless. Please stay out of their way if you can." And Caelum also has questions of his own. He asks first, "Have you seen anyone else here? A man in grey robes, perhaps?" And Coriander says, "No. The mansion has been empty except for us, the cats, and the fairy dragons. You are the first visitors in a very long time." And he asks as well, "What about the books with the special books with the single letters on their spines?" And both of them go very still. Cumin speaks carefully. "We have been instructed not to touch those books. They are important. The Lady Vistania placed them throughout the mansion for a reason. We don't know what reason." And Celestine says, "Oh, well, that's okay. It seems they're a puzzle of sorts. Do you know what's upstairs? Or downstairs even? We found a secret door in the study that leads downstairs." Cumin says, "Upstairs, the Lady Vistania's personal chambers, her laboratory, her studies. Beautiful rooms, very organized." And Coriander says, "Downstairs?" They exchange a glance. "We do not go downstairs. That is not our territory. The Lady Vistania kept her specimens there, and her summoning chamber. We were told to stay away." So it seems that the homunculi are confined to the kitchen and the dining room mainly, and genuinely don't really understand what's happening to the rest of the mansion. But they also seem like they're trying very hard to pretend that everything is normal. It's hard to not know when your masters or Vistania is gonna come back. As they eat and rest in this place that is very welcoming and homey, quite like a sanctuary for them, they gain the benefits of a short rest. How nice. I shouldn't have healed Nax. Just kidding. So as they were eating and talking to Cumin and Coriander, another cat pads into the room. So the fluffy black cat from the study was already there, and now a sleek great tabby that the group hasn't seen before arrives. They mainly ignore them. They're just eating. They're occasionally batting at each other to claim the other's food. And once the black cat, their friend, finishes eating, licks its paws, and then walks over to Celestine and rubs against her leg, purring, and it looks up with half-closed eyes. Aw, so cute. Celestine wishes she could take this cat with her, but alas, it waits for its master. And at this moment, I would like Celestine to give me an Arcana check. And Nax will help her. Wait, actually, Nax might have better Arcana. Oh yeah, Nax has +5 to Arcana, Celestine is +4, so they'll just roll separately then. Oh, actually, Caelum will help Celestine, I guess. So this is Celestine rolls, so Caelum helping. Ooh, that is a 17 and a 12, so 17 plus 4 for 21. And Nax, 12 plus 5 for 17, so that's great, that's great. They both pass. So because of their expertise, or at least knowledge about magic, Nax and Celestine know that a master can have only one homunculus at a time, and a homunculus dies when its master dies. And Nax acknowledges this. He says, "Wait, you said Fistandia created you and Freyot created Coriander. Homunculi die when their masters die. If you're both still alive," and he looks at Celestine, "Fistandia and Freyot are still alive. Somewhere." And Cumin and Coriander exclaims, yes, of course. We knew the Lady Fistandia would not leave us forever. She will return. She always returns. And Celestine somehow finds this comforting, as you know, she is at least reassured that the cats and these two sweet beings are not waiting around for nothing. And yes, that was my Pomodoro cat timer. I just decided to leave it in because I was talking about cats and it meowed, so it seems apt. And with that, we will end this episode of Alonesy, the first part of our version of the Joy of Extradimensional Spaces. Next episode, we will be finishing this adventure, hopefully. Surely it won't take more than an hour. Hopefully we find Matreus and figure out what the word to get out of this place is. I'll see you in the next one. Don't worry, we'll get to Cinna soon. She has a different job. I have something else in mind for her. I just don't know if she's gonna be soloing it or she's gonna have one of her pals. But as always, see you tomorrow.